Nan, what are you doing? What are you doing?
I'm watering the shrubs, Diane.
That's not how you water. Don't water like that.
I know. I was just trying to see if you noticed. You know, I mean, I was like jerking your chain, Diane. I know.
Right.
The proper way to water is never to do it superficially. I mean, people say to me all the time, I water this plant every day, and every day it wilts, and it doesn't look good and it's dying, and that's because you're doing it wrong. So what we want to do is we want to water our plants thoroughly, deeply, less often. So for example, this is a twiggy dogwood.
I'm going to come over here for a minute. Okay.
This is a yellow twig dogwood, Cornus sericea flaberrima, which is a native dogwood, has yellow twigs in the winter. It's in a tiny little pot. So if I water it like this, okay, I'm done, right? So I lift it up and I take it out of its pot and the water just went to here, okay?
Right.
So if you zoom in, you can see it's wet here and it's dry here.
Yep.
So these roots, if you do that every day, these roots are gonna die. And when these roots die, the top dies. Parts of the top dies because those parts of the top are connected to these roots. And then if you planted this in the ground and you did it that way, whatever roots are left are all gonna move up to the top of the surface of the ground. And when you have a heat wave or high temperatures and not a lot of rain, and you shallowly spritz the plants all the time because you think they need it, you create a very shallow root ball, and that is completely susceptible to the summer heat and dryness. So instead, you need to, imagine this is planted. You've got to get it watered all the way down to here. The first few weeks, this entire root ball has to be saturated when you water it. And then after a couple of years, these roots will be spreading out and it wouldn't need water unless we're in a severe drought, in which case you would just place the hose at the base of the plant on a trickle and let it run for about 15 minutes. So the proper way to water this plant in a pot is thoroughly until you see it starting to come out the bottom. So now we know for sure that it's gotten watered. Same with this one. This is a Hypericum, a St. John's wort. Once in the ground, it's very drought tolerant. But in here, you see how dry it is?
It's really dry.
Okay, so we've been going around and adding mulch to the top of the pots to kind of keep them a little cooler, but the top is wet and the bottom's dry. So again, you know, a little spritz, I'm watering, that's not how it works. You've got to soak it really, really well. Now, plants in pots are going to need more watering more often than plants in the ground. So, but once they're in the ground, you can back off on the watering. Now let me show you something. How do you know if a plant needs water? Oh my God, look at these pinky pollen ring hydrangeas. They're wilted.
They're
Let's
totally
water
wilted.
them. Wait a minute. The pots are heavy and the soil is soaking wet. Soil is soaking wet. They don't need water at all.
So why are they wilting?
They're hot.
They're hot.
It's
just
a
like
hot
people,
day.
the plants
Right.
wilt when they're hot.
It's wet all the way down. I can feel it, right?
Yep.
So they're hot. So what I said in the email and what I'll say over and over again is if you walk up to a plant that's wilted and you feel into the soil and the soil's not dry, wait. And then later in the day when the sun leaves the garden, you walk over to the plant. If the plant has perked up, it didn't need water. It was just hot. So a lot of people just like every time a plant droops, they water it, and next thing you know, they got this superficial watering going on, roots up at the surface, and plants are actually rotting from too much water on this very shallow root system. So water deeply, water less frequently, and the roots will go down deep seeking the water. They won't be up at the surface drying out. Okay? That's the way to water. If you have any questions when you come in, we will show you. This applies to vegetable gardens. I don't water my tomatoes every day. I have them on a schedule. I put a hose at the base of every plant. The bigger they get, the larger they get, the more often I'll water them. But right now, they're still kind of small. So you've got to test the soil and you've got to water the entire root ball. This birch here, that's a much bigger pot. That's going to need a lot more water to water it.
Yep.
Okay? So that's the way it works. This is Nancy from Nature Works saying, see you at the garden center. Bye-bye.